Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, October 10th, 2020, and today we'll be taking a look at a 2020 electoral projection from the Inside Elections Cook Political Report and Sabato Crystal Ball. We're going to be taking a look at where they stand on all of the 2020 races and talk about why I think certain states are characterized in a particular fashion, and then we're going to talk about which one I think is probably the most accurate out of all of these. So I'm going to spend roughly 4 or 5 minutes on each one, so let's go ahead and get started. So this is the Inside Elections one. They give Donald Trump 187 electoral votes and Joe Biden 319. You can see that they have numerous states flipping from red to blue in Arizona, Florida, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and also Nebraska's 2nd District, even though it's not a state. That puts Joe Biden in a pretty strong position. Now, there are no states that Clinton carried 4 years ago that are considered toss-ups on this map. In fact, there's only 2 toss-up states, North Carolina and Georgia, and then a toss-up district in Maine's 2nd District. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all of these Republican characterizations. I don't think that Montana will be lean for the GOP, and I'm not entirely sure why it's considered that way. As for Alaska, I wouldn't consider it to be lean either on the presidential level. The Senate level seems a tad bit more likely as a lean Republican state, not so much on the presidential level. But I do agree with the Minnesota and Nevada characterization. I can't say I'll jump on and say Virginia and Colorado will be safe Democratic states. They'll probably win it by double digits, but not safe. But still, it ends up with the, I guess you could say, what I would believe the correct election winner in both of those states. As for Arizona and Wisconsin and Florida, I'd be a little bit more lenient towards a Florida tilt D characterization, but for Wisconsin and Arizona, realistically, they're lean. If Pennsylvania and Michigan are blue, Wisconsin's likely voting by the same margin in the direction of the Democrats. Now, Michigan, I actually think this is a little bit more conservative than what I'd expect. I expect Michigan to be a likely state, but then again, they're entitled to their own opinion. In Iowa, Ohio, and Texas, while all of these states I do think the GOP will end up winning and do currently have the upper hand in, Texas specifically, I'm not entirely sure of it being a tilt state. At a point in time in the election season, I would have said it would be tilt. I'm not agreeing with that now, but Iowa and Ohio, I could see being tilt. New Hampshire, I think lean is a good characterization. So all in all, I think that this map is very solid. It has the correct flips from 2016. I would be a little hesitant to immediately characterize Florida as a Democratic state, especially working with tilts. It's very shaky, but all in all, I think that this is a very solid prediction. I think that the Republican characterizations, while I disagree with Montana and Alaska, actually reflect what we might see in South Carolina or Missouri or even, Utah, with a firm opposition from Mitt Romney in Trump's reelection bid. Now, Mitt Romney hasn't endorsed Joe Biden. There hasn't exactly been discussion of that, though. And Mitt Romney's wife, has appeared with Michelle Obama on occasion and, encouraged people getting out to vote. And generally, you have a pretty good idea of who the candidates support when they're coming out together. But all in all, I mean, this prediction is relatively solid. I think that the Democrats should be very happy with where they stand on this map. Now, I'm going to be referring back to this one as we compare the predictions. So let's move on. The next prediction that we're going to be taking a look at is the Cook Political Report. Now, I do have a little bit to talk about here. The Cook Political Report is the one that I actually use discussing how the election has changed over time. And if we look, Biden's at 290. Now, this is a little bit more favoring Trump in the sense that Biden doesn't automatically have over 300 electoral votes, as Inside Elections puts it, but he's flipping Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. Now, that's enough to put the Democrats at 290. Well, 289, Nebraska's 2nd District puts Biden at 290 in this map. And I also agree with these likely Republican states. I think they have them spot on in Montana, in Kansas, in Missouri, in Indiana, and South Carolina. Kansas and Utah, I will be pretty shaky on. I mean, they could go either way. Right now, I would say that almost all of these likely Republican characterizations are pretty solid and match what I predict, but I don't really fundamentally disagree with them too heavily or really at all. So that puts Trump at 48 likely electoral votes. Now, I think that this Texas lean Republican characterization is still pretty strong. I don't think Cook Political Report does work with tilt states, but they do have toss-up states. Now, Texas, I'd say, is lean Republican at this point. Donald Trump's still the favorite, and it's still Texas. At its core, it is a Republican state. Now, for the 85 toss-up electoral votes, these are all Trump states or districts. No main second erasure here, but all Trump states from 2016 that right now, Joe Biden is either leading in the polls or the current favorite to win. Looking at Ohio, North Carolina, Iowa, and Florida, only till recently has Georgia moved back into the Donald Trump column in terms of polls. But at a time, literally 2 days ago, all 5 of these states had Biden up in the polls. So I understand why they're toss-ups. I do think that Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, Iowa, which were pretty solid for Trump compared to Florida. Florida went to Trump by 1%, by the way. The rest of these were 3.5% or above. Emphasis on above when we're talking about Iowa and Ohio. But I do understand these characterizations. Now, I really am iffy about the Minnesota lean Democrat characterization. I have used that one in the past. But as we get closer to the election, we realize that it probably isn't going to go to Donald Trump or even narrow up as much as it was in 2016. But I agree with the Virginia and the Colorado characterizations. I think that New Hampshire and Nevada were pretty solid calls. I think Arizona is yet again another solid call on the side of Cook Political Report. So all in all, I mean, I think this map is also very solid. I don't really disagree with much. It also looks vaguely similar, actually not vaguely similar, very similar to the other view word, very similar to the next one we're taking a look at, which is the Sabato crystal ball. But looking at the 85 toss-up electoral votes here, I don't really disagree with much. I think that this map is pretty accurate and pretty strong as we take a look. So let's move on to the Sabato crystal ball, and you can actually see that on this map, Biden is the favorite. So what's something that's pretty standard across all 3 of these projections is that Biden is the favorite. Now, you can see that in some regions of the country, it gets a lot less solid for Donald Trump or more solid for Joe Biden at that. But in the Sabato crystal ball, I think this one is actually probably pretty close. I mean, Trump is at 179, at least in inside elections. He was up at 187, and in the Cook Political Report, this one is his lowest, showing at 163. But this map is probably the best one that we've seen for Donald Trump. This is the last one we're going to be taking a look at, but you can see, I mean, they already declare that Trump will win Texas, which is pretty standard. They also declare that he will win the state of Georgia, which I am pretty surprised that Georgia is voting to the right of Iowa and Ohio, at least in this prediction. One thing that's also pretty consistent, if you take a look at the Rust Belt, it stays for Joe Biden. These are 3 Trump states from 2016. Trump can't win without them. Another thing that's pretty standard are the Clinton states from 2016. None of them are toss-ups, and they're all solid for Joe Biden. Not solid, but in Joe Biden's column. Looking at Nebraska's 2nd district, this is a district that people didn't really expect to flip in 2016. I mean, Hillary Clinton did have possibilities of making inroads there, but Donald Trump only ended up winning it by 2%, despite Romney winning it by 7% 4 years prior. So Nebraska's 2nd district has a very real possibility of going to Joe Biden this election, and it looks like that's pretty consistent across the Sabato crystal ball, inside elections, and Cook Political Report. Maine 2nd district has pretty much been a toss-up throughout all of these. There's a reason for that. That is a congressional district that moved away from the Obama and Clinton base pretty solidly for Donald Trump. I mean, Obama won Maine 2nd district, I believe, by 9%, and then Trump went on to win it by 10%. That's a 19-point swing from 2016. It is very substantial. And as we look across this map on the inside elections, you can see that, Biden does very well. This is his best map. This one is probably the best map for Donald Trump. But again, like I said, Biden is winning in all of these, which means none of these maps are really his worst map. Donald Trump just moves from 163, if I'm getting that correctly, 163 on the Cook Political Report up to 187 on the inside elections. So looking at the map, Donald Trump's still under 200. He has a lot of work to do, and I think we're all realizing that. And I think that all of these predictions will probably end up coming true. Looking at the Rust Belt, that's pretty consistent. Looking at Arizona, it is almost all consistent, I believe. Arizona is considered to be a toss-up on the Sabato crystal ball. And that's probably just due to the state's rich Republican history, but very real possibility of going to Joe Biden. He is the favorite to win Arizona, might I remind you. So Arizona is pretty consistent. The Rust Belt is absolutely consistent across all 3 projections. Inside elections just puts Biden at a likely a tilt characterization in Wisconsin out of the 3. And then the toss-up states relatively stay the same. I mean, North Carolina, Ohio, and Iowa, and Georgia typically roll in and out of being toss-up states. Florida is tilt Democrat in inside elections, but a toss-up on Cook and Sabato crystal ball. So, again, some very clear patterns, and I think we have a general idea of who's going to be winning in certain regions and how well they're going to be doing. Because, again, like I said, every Clinton state from 2016 in Joe Biden's column. Those Rust Belt states in Joe Biden's column. The toss-up states, North Carolina stays the same out of all of them. It is the only state that stays the same in terms of toss-up characterizations. But what we see and 2 out of 3 times is Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina, and Florida. That's what we see, and those are probably going to be some of the closer races in the 2020 election. Georgia and Texas have been characterized at certain points for the GOP. I think that the GOP are the favorites to win there. These likely Republican states are catching up to Donald Trump, and I, again, agree with these likely Republican characterizations, whether it's Missouri or Alaska. Now, I think Inside Elections is a little weird for Donald Trump here. While this may be his best map in terms of numbers, up at 187, it's not necessarily the best map in terms of characterizations for at least Montana and Alaska. Together, there's 6 electoral votes. They're still probably going to go to Donald Trump by very solid margins, so I don't know why they're considered lean states, but again, they're entitled to their opinion about that. So, Inside Elections, final recap, Biden wins with 319 to Trump's 187. On the Cook Political Report, Biden wins with 290 to Trump's 163. And then in Sabato Crystal Ball's map, Donald Trump loses, or Joe Biden wins with 279 to Donald Trump's 179. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord link for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.